Next Level Mindset here with another powerful and positive video. Let's talk about 7 things they don't tell you about spiritual awakenings. I'm going to share my insights, research on that. And if you stay with me on this all the way through, I've got some bonus insights, personal empowerment, things that I know you do not want to miss. By the fact that you're watching and listening to this right now, this is confirmation that you're waking up. And this is an early bonus point. Number 1, a spiritual awakening is not something that happens all at once. It is something that usually happens over time. We'll talk more about that as we get into this. And the first thing that they don't tell you about spiritual awakenings is that it can be confusing. It can seem like it's a big change going on in your life. It can shake things up. You can sometimes feel disoriented about what's going on. I know in my life, as I began to grow spiritually and change certain things that I thought was true, I began to see that there was a level of confusion. But I realized that there's just a part of life. This is just a part of the process. Spiritual awakenings come in our lives, and it can seem like things are shaking up. It can seem like there is confusion going on. There will even be times when you will find that things that you used to believe in, you don't believe those things anymore. And so as you begin to wake up spiritually, that confusion is just a part of it. There is clarity, and there's a part of balancing that out with that confusing state. And we'll talk more about balance coming up in a minute. But yeah, think about that. They don't tell you that when you begin to change things, when you begin to shift your belief systems, there is a level of confusion that might take place. But I want to encourage you, don't let that discourage you from your spirituality. Don't let that discourage you from taking those next steps of awakening. Spiritual awakenings happen in moments of our lives when things are shifting. Maybe you're going through a change in your life. Maybe there's a breakdown. One of my sayings is sometimes you have to go through a breakdown in order to have a breakthrough. And one thing to keep in mind is that sometimes this level of confusion, it could be like a gentle nudge for some people. It could be like a small situation. But for other people, it can seem like a major crisis going on in your life, right? Things are just turned up upside down, dark night of the soul, that confusion comes in your life. I remember when I first started practicing spirituality more in my life. And I went through a phase where I used to think, for example, I used to think that only Jesus was the Son of God. But then I realized that we are all sons and daughters of that Most High God, right? We're all part of this divine family. So keep that in mind as you begin to grow spiritually. Never forget that that level of confusion that may come in your life, there is clarity, and that clarity comes by being patient with yourself, forgiving yourself, moving on from those things that you used to count as true, knowing that there's always growing taking place in your life. Spirituality is powerful, but it can sometimes seem confusing, and they don't tell you that. We're going to talk about who they are in a little bit, but that's one thing they don't tell you about spiritual awakenings. There can be a level of confusion, but when there is confusion, there's also clarity on the other side. And the second thing they don't tell you about spiritual awakening is that it can be a physically challenging situation. Your whole physiology will change. You will begin to challenge yourself physically. I know even in my life, as I began to grow spiritually, there were things that I stopped eating. There were things that I started doing, working out, doing physical activities. And you may be watching this right now, and one of those changes in your life is being more active, exercising, getting out into nature. And you will find that those physical changes that you make can make it physically challenging for you as you begin to wake up in the spirit. But that's just a part of the process. And the good thing about this is that there are certain things that we can do to ease that physical strain, right? There are certain things that we can do. I like doing yoga, not really doing a major yoga activity. I really don't know all the dynamics in it, but just stretching, getting out into nature, exercising, eliminating certain things out of my diet. There was a time when I stopped eating red meat, and it wasn't because there's anything wrong with that. Maybe just right for you, but for me, my body just wasn't accepting it the way I used to. So there's physical changes that you will find yourself going through as you experience a spiritual awakening different states of those awakenings can be physically challenging to you. And if you're someone who read the ancient texts, in the ancient texts, they would call this ascension symptoms, symptoms of ascending to higher levels in your spirit life. Just physically challenging things that go on in your body, in your physical makeup. We're all physical manifestations of the divine being of God within us, that great I am. We'll talk more about that coming up in a little bit. When you begin to experience spiritual awakenings, certain states of that awakening state can be challenging on your physical being. Sometimes this includes things like energy being drained from you. Sometimes it'll even impact your sleeping patterns, where you find yourself waking up in the middle of the night, having visions and different dreams that affect your physical being. So that's just part of the process. But they don't tell you that as you begin to wake up, as you begin to go through certain levels of spiritual awakening, it can be challenging on your physical well-being. And one thing that I learned in my life along my journey is that these physical changes, it's really just the body trying to keep up with the mind, right? We have a mind, body, spirit, the whole interaction of our three-part system of our interaction, three-dimensional being on this earth. Our body's just trying to keep up with the things that are going on in the mental and spiritual realms. And sometimes they can be intense, sometimes they can be mellow and non-dramatic, other times they can be major and really on another level. But they don't tell you that it's going to affect your physical being, it's going to affect your spirituality, it is going to affect your physiology. Also, never look at it as something wrong if you have to consult a physical caregiver. Even things like that is just a part of the growing process. It is a part of the journey. And what I've learned to do in my life is to just be easy with myself, take your time, be patient, be forgiving, and choose to understand. I realize that there are some physical changes that are going to take place in your life. And as long as you understand that and see that, you can move on. You can keep going and you can continue to grow with your spirituality. And the third thing, the next thing they don't tell you about spiritual awakening, your physical relationships will change. Your family situations will begin to change. People that you used to hang out with, you won't hang out with them anymore. The friends that you used to have as friends, right? Those friendships will begin to change. Even your spouse and your marital relationships, your love life, all of those things will begin to go through changes. And it's part of the process to choose to understand that. And I always like to say, even when people come in my life, you can choose to raise your standards to be with me, but I refuse to lower my standards to be with you. So keep that in mind. It's part of the process. Relationships will change, but you can realize that this is just a part of your growing, part of your spirituality, part of your journey, advancing, changing things in your life, going to the next level. And if you're part of the family, you already know that's how we like to do it to get it done. Next level mindset in everything that we do. And by the way, if this is your first time here or you've been here before and you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. If you want to stay empowered and inspired, we'd love to have you here as a part of the Next Level community. And the fourth thing, the next thing they don't tell you about spiritual awakenings is that it is an ongoing process. It starts with an idea. It includes your plans, and you may have a goal to increase your spirituality. But from my experience, it is not something that just happens one time and overnight. For some people, it can take days before you begin to see a change. And for others, it could be even months or even years. And if you really think about it, it is an eternal process because we are always growing. We are always growing, always advancing. And one of my sayings is that we may win some and we may learn some, but we'll never lose as long as we're learning. And so what I found in my life, from my experience, having a spiritual awakening or different levels of spiritual awakenings is about learning different things that we never really knew was true. It's about advancing in certain areas. For example, even in my career, playing the piano and playing music, there was a time when I only knew how to do a C chord. Then I began to learn more and I knew how to do a C, D, E, F, G chord. Then I learned how to do different transitions in different notes. I used to only play in the key of C. Then I learned how to play in the key of E flat. So think about it like that. You're starting out with a certain spiritual principle that will lead to another spiritual principle. And before you know it, you've gained certain insights to where you know certain things just don't line up with other truths, right? So it's not an overnight process. From my experience and from my life, I found that it is an ongoing process, something that takes a little time. It could take years, it could take months. And I've learned to never judge other people from where they are in their spiritual life. We're all exactly where we need to be in our spirituality. But it is never just an overnight process. It is an ongoing process, step by step, going to higher levels every step of the way. This is spirituality. This is a spiritual awakening. And the fifth thing, the next thing they don't tell you about spiritual awakenings is that you can sometimes feel all alone. But I want to encourage you that God is always there with you. You are never really alone. One of my sayings is, I am the essence of Almighty God. I am a glorious and most intelligent manifestation of this almighty and divine presence, and we are one. You will find that there are times when your emotions will begin to take over. You will begin to feel like you're isolated. You will begin to feel moments of sadness. But this is just part of the process, feeling as if you're all on your own. And here's the thing to remember. There will be times when you have to travel alone, right? You have to travel on your own. But what I found out is that even though I may not have friends there, like we talked about earlier, even if my relationships change and other people leave my life, I always have the divine spirit of God, wherever your relationship with the God of your understanding, the great power of God within us, that great I am. We're really never alone, because God is always right there, living as your life manifested in the being that you are right here and now. But they don't tell you that. When you begin to grow spiritually and experience certain levels of spiritual awakenings, they do not tell you that you will feel as if you are all alone. But always remember, you are never really on your own. God can never be separated from the manifestation right here in me and right here in you. And the sixth thing, the next thing they don't tell you about a spiritual awakening is that it will increase your intuition and your sensitivity to certain issues. You will find that where before things never really affected you, or you really didn't see certain things, you become more sensitive, and your intuition. You know things even before they take place. You begin to see things even before they are in the physical. You can see them in the spirit. You begin to have an extrasensory perception. Some people call it ESP, right? You know what's going to happen even before it happened. That spirit, that Holy Spirit, that divine spirit of God within you will begin to speak to you and tell you not to do certain things, not to go certain places, not to hang around with certain people. You know how it is. You have that certain gut feeling where you know something is not right about this. You have a sense that something is just not right about that situation. And you go another way. You make up in your mind that you're going to be sensitive and intuitive in every area of your life. And that's just part of the spiritual awakening process. And the thing about this is, if we don't have that balance that we'll talk about, it may cause problems in your life. That's why it's so important to be sensitive to certain issues, but that is just part of it. And what I've learned to do in my life, I always learn how to follow my spirit. One of my sayings said that I am always led by the great spirit. Therefore, I always know exactly what to do. So I'm always listening and always watching, always in the right place at the right time, doing and saying the right things to the right people, constantly placing myself in the right position to receive everything that God has for my life. Also, keep in mind, trusting your intuition is really a learning process. Sometimes you'll trust your intuition and you'll find out that it may not have been the best thing for you to do. But you have to learn that process. For me, it took a while for me to begin to realize that every now and then I will choose to make a decision that might not line up with the best, but it's always going to work out for the best in the long run. Remember, this thing is higher than us on this physical earth. This thing is bigger than who you are right here in this manifestation. It will increase your intuition and your sensitivity, trusting that power of God within us, knowing that all is well. And the seventh thing, the next thing they don't tell you about a spiritual awakening is that we must include balance. There has to be a certain approach in this thing where we're balancing it out, creating that harmony. And I'll be the first to admit that sometimes it's hard to create that balance. We have our lives going on. We have certain aspects of our lives. You may be watching this right now and you're in the process of balancing out certain areas of your life. There is a certain level of equilibrium that has to take place. But they don't tell you that when you begin to grow spiritually and you have spiritual awakenings in your life, even in our digital world, even in our worlds of online activity, there has to be a different set of balance that has to take place. The world is growing right now, evolving so fast that if we're not careful, we have to have that balance. So as you begin to grow spiritually, keep that in mind. And this is something that people don't tell you about achieving levels of spirituality, waking up spiritually. Balance is so important. And the way I've learned to do that is to just realize that as long as I'm honoring that golden rule, as long as I'm treating others how I want to be treated, I can't go wrong. So it's important to find different ways for you personally to create that balance. Sometimes this can involve changing your habits, changing certain routines, like we talked about earlier, changing certain beliefs, maybe not all at once, but just that one intuition, that one perception, that one relationship, that one change, balancing it all out. For you, it could be a work-life balance that has to go on, knowing that certain parts of your work has to be balanced out with your life and your family. You never know who you might run into and who you might contact and what relationships you may build. Balance is so important, but they don't tell you. And we talked about who they are. Most of the time, they are the ones who have grown to certain levels of spirituality. And the reason they don't speak up a lot of times is because there is a certain principle and a certain rule in the spiritual life. And it really states that if certain people don't ask for it, it's probably best not to give it to them. A lot of times people on a spiritual level, they don't volunteer a lot of information, but simply because they're not asked. So it's important for us to reach out and to gain that experience, to reach out and ask for that intuition. But balance is so important, and this balance takes a little time. And always remember, as you begin to wake up in the spirit, experiencing different levels of spiritual awakenings, it not only reflects and affects your inner spiritual life, but it can also affect those around you. Now, one of my videos talked about you'll never know how important your life really is to other people, how much you really mean to someone who's looking up to you. And creating that balance is so important in our spiritual life. This is part of the process of spiritual awakening, is balancing things out, knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes, knowing how to level out your life, right? Sometimes it simply means saying no when you feel it in your spirit, when you have that intuition that we talked about, when you have that sensitivity. Sometimes it's just about saying no, knowing how to say no to certain things and yes to your spiritual life. I like to say, put spirituality first and last. I put my spiritual growth first and last, and everything else will balance out on its own. This balance is a natural equilibrium, and it will not happen overnight. Most of the time, it takes a little while for these things to take place. But always remember, you're never alone. God is right there to help you equalize those things, creating the balance that you need to continue to grow in the spirit, to reach the next level of insight for your life. Now, I've got some bonus insights that I want to share on this spirituality, but first I just want to share this with you. Just want to give you a little bit of my new song, Behind the Scenes. It's entitled Without You. Just had to share that with you. Might want to subscribe so you can stay up with that. And you already know about my brand new single, already out, Nobody. It's streaming everywhere right now. Your music is streamed. Go to Spotify, put that on your favorite Spotify playlist, and grab your copy from the Amazon site. Do that with the links in the description. And if you are enjoying the content on my channel, consider becoming a member. We have a membership in our Buy Me a Coffee site. You can enjoy that. Behind the scenes, never seen footage. Buy a coffee. Take one of my books home with you. Any way you want to do it, there's links in the description for you to do just that. So this first bonus point that I want to share, it really deals with the idea of spiritual awakenings What levels are we on? I talk about that in another video, that we're all on a certain level. We're all on different levels. And something that may be considered a spiritual aspect and a great awakening for one may not be the same for someone else. In my book, Mystic Secrets of the Bible, I talk about how it says in 2 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter, it talks about being servants of a new agreement, that we are not under the agreement of written laws, but of the Spirit. And I talk about how the written law brings death, but the Spirit gives life, right? And I talk about how we are actually the awareness of God. Your spirit is eternal with God because your spirit is God. And I go deeper into that with my book, Mystic Secrets of the Bible. I would love for you to grab a copy of that and take it home with you with the link in the description. And another thing to keep in mind, when we talk about spiritual awakenings, growing in the spirit, we do have that enlightenment. We have that extrasensory perception, but there is a dark side to this situation. And I talk more about that in this video right here coming up on the screen. I think that will be a great video for you to watch next. So check that out and enjoy it. Thanks again to my subscribers and returning viewers. I really appreciate you. Hit the like button, share this on your way out. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Stay blessed, stay positive, never give up, always stay true. Until next time, I'll see you on the next level. Peace.